Commission to join me in this conversation. I'll come to Mr. Chimera now to talk a little bit about grassroots policy and how you feel maybe we've been able to do some good work in terms of advocacy, especially for advancing digital rights and access for women. We clearly have some gaps, yes, but in your advocacy, do you feel like there have been some wins that we can celebrate today?
Thank you very much, Ben, and our viewers. I would say there's tremendous progress that we've done, irrespective of some of the demerits that are coming in with inequalities. I'll just start with one example. I recall in 2009, just looking at telecoms contributions and advancement, we had around about 5 million formal accounts. That's before mobile money. Now, 2009, telecoms is growing and mobile money comes in. 5 million. Today, whether it is a simple phone, it is a wallet, a digital wallet or a mobile wallet.
It's enabled to be able to transact. Yeah.
Today, services are going in home and out. Today, we are we are coming to 40 million.
More than 40 million.
Yeah. So, if every SIM card is enabling access through telecom to access digital finance, that is one tremendous step. The demerit, and where I said earlier, the biggest challenge, and which challenges the inclusivity, the equity, and even the potential, are mainly scams. Okay? Scams, poor quality services, and so forth, which are understandable as we roll out. But when we continuously bring in the different grassroots activities, I'll give you an example. When we were doing town halls with UCC, still on telecommunication, information issues, we were in Chiboga. And when we got the voice from the consumers, that's grassroots, brought it to the public, by then, Nita, you said we are going back to Chiboga so that we improve the signal or roll out and improve internet access.
So there were some gaps there that you're able to identify based on feedback from people.
So that is grassroots information where we are harvesting consumer complaints.
Yeah.
Putting it to the authority. Now that is advocacy, putting it in the public domain. Then the public responds by saying there is weakness here, there is a challenge in infrastructure. Now, as our mandate, UCC says we are going to improve. UCC talks to the private sector. You're doing poor quality service here.
Yeah.
So that's where the voices of the grassroots, the voices of the consumers, consumer organization, other organizations coming out and bringing out the impediment of advancing digital utilization, telecom benefits. Because today it's not a privilege, it is a right.
Yeah.
That is something that I need to emphasize. Telecommunication and information is a right.
Yeah.
I'll give you statistics, very simple ones. In 2024, during the World Economic Forum, the 10 challenges that were put, mis and disinformation.
Right.
That was one, top 10. And the second was cyber security.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Internet of Things today, and when you look at what we need to do, we are in the fourth industrialization, and that is digital.
Right.
And if we do not invest in partnerships, we do not invest in dialoguing the way we are discussing now, the listeners, the viewers that are watching us, to get to know that there is a need to speak out when things are not good, then we are not going to improve our society to have the quality of life that has been talked of, because digitalization, digital infrastructure is even the quality of everything that we do.
Right.
It is everything. Today, digital is helping us to get food.
Yeah.
So that will bring business to women
Yeah.
who are mainly doing the cooking. But even men are doing the cooking. So the other day I was telling colleagues that you just call your border guy, go to this shop, bring me food. And most of the times where the grassroots information needs to be very good,
Yeah.
that kind of linkage will improve businesses, because with increased consumption of safe products increases the health of the consumers,
Yeah.
it increases the health of businesses.
So
Yeah.
the way you mentioned that communications usage and telecoms and the digital space at the moment has become such an intricate part of our lives that actually it is a right where maybe it wasn't 25 years ago, as we keep hearing from those of us who are who are older. But beyond it being a right, it has also created some incredible opportunities for people. And Sharifa, to shed some light on, again, this is your space. You've been working with a lot of young girls and young women. Could you share some success stories of where you've seen some women being able to actually put technology to improve their livelihoods? And I'm sure you probably have some really good stories. We want to hear some of them.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, we've done a lot of work in this space, supported by UCC especially. We've now reached over 4,500 women in just between 2024-25 digital skilling. On the entrepreneurship side, I'd like to give an example of a young lady that we are working with called Bennett Advisory. So I know if you see social media right now, everyone is complaining about taxes. Compliance is an issue to run an SME, because the government is really coming down on compliance for SMEs. And she's come up with a brilliant solution, CIO as a service. So she has a web portal where you can access a CIO, a CFO, because for most SMEs, you can't afford an expert.
Yeah.
These people come at a premium. But she has consultants, so it's bringing together the consultants in the back end and then the SMEs. So an SME can get a fractional service at a reduced cost. For 500,000, 300,000, you get access to a tax consultant.
Oh, wow.
To do your taxes per month,
Yeah.
which it's not affordable for many, but at least it's reasonable.
Yeah.
So, because the problem is it's not that the government is really coming down, it's because we are not interpreting these things well.
The idea being that if you're running a business,
Yes.
you are going to have to put your things in order, and so your books must be organized. That if you're making losses, yes, but if you're making money, the government needs to know exactly what's happening, and so being able to actually keep track of that becomes an important thing, right?
Yeah, exactly, perfectly. And you're an entrepreneur, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm good at math, but I'm not good at financial math. Yeah, and I need someone to look at my books for me. So she's doing this for hundreds of SMEs right now. She has up to 100 clients on retainer, and it's been an amazing growth story to see that this is something that someone can not think of off the top of their head.
Yeah.
Of course, there are other stories in e-commerce, people building shops online, selling to as far as Congo, where their products would never have been seen, because now there is the power of the internet.
The internet.
Yeah?
It's an equalizer, isn't it?
It's an equalizer. Now you have a global market. Your market is no longer Nakawa. It's not Kampala. Your market is the world, and we should start positioning ourselves like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then brings us to our dear government, so represented by Marcella today, in terms of what government is doing to try and use digital platforms to improve service access for women, but also other groups to be able to do the sort of things that Sharifa is talking about, but even for themselves, in terms of government services, being able to access these online now. What sort of progress are we making in ensuring access, especially in the context of today, for women and marginalized groups to have good access to services using digital platforms? What are you doing in that space?
So I'll speak on behalf of the Ministry of ICT. this platform for PDM. So it has citizen participation and I think financial registration from the parish upwards. So what they have done successfully is registration, where now you know how many people have subscribed, are getting PDM money. Then we have Postbank, which has Wendy, a system that is a mobile wallet, like he was saying, but built in Uganda for Ugandans. And there was, of course, the uptake was not as seamless or successful in the beginning, but more people have come on, more people are subscribing. We're having a chat earlier with some of my panelists. Mobile money can only be received on the phone, so, or a device, right? And we are trying to, in our financial inclusion, really as government, when we're talking to you, because now there's so many interventions, yoga and circles and all this, we are trying to leverage all this technology. So we kind of have to teach, on how to use your phone, mobile money, cyber security. Of course, radio still beats everything. However, now we have online radios. We have most of radios get information from digital platforms. So it's slowly building. I've seen some of our women on TikTok in the markets. So we're also trying to see that we get government on these platforms, simplify messages as much as possible. Village WhatsApp groups are amazing. Even if, of course, access to internet and all these gadgets is still a problem, but I think generally progress is incremental, it's gradual, it's there. And whether you like it or not, your grandmother will still get something her grandson or son read off the internet. Eventually, I believe we're going to have some progress. In that regard.
It's interesting you talk about progress, because I wanted to come to Rebecca on this in terms of being progressive for both our policies, but also for you as UCC for the licensing framework. What are you doing to ensure that this is strong on inclusivity and being inclusive, but also what some of the policies, for example, that might be in place at the moment that people might want to know that are being useful, especially in making sure that our women, and focus for today is we're talking about how we give better access to our women to digital inclusion and digital services.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thanks to Marcella for giving us some context and perspective in the incremental growth in that direction. Like I mentioned at the beginning, when we present Uganda Communications Commission, our tagline is Communications for All. So essentially everything we do is to ensure the services are there. Now, after the services are there, then we have to understand what it is for those who are using the services, because the service providers have profit incentives. They come here to run businesses. But the government has the burden of growing all of us as a nation, regardless of those who can afford and those who can't afford. So after we have done interventions on the supply side, whether it's through the standards development process, the licensing process, the enabling environment, then through our Universal Service and Access Fund program, we have rolled out a number of initiatives to also catalyze the supply side, the demand side, sorry. So you find that one of the key drivers of usage of ICTs is affordability. Now, affordability puts us in a place of the chicken and the egg, because for services, the more people use the services, the more the services become cheaper.
Right.
But then those who are using the services should be able to afford them to attract more. So you see, it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation. And you find that the interventions we're doing at the under the Universal Service and Access Fund program, the demand side interventions, the ICT in education program where you're rolling out computers and creating clubs in schools. Now, those programs, whether it's digital skilling to empower people to use the ICTs, and then to run separate programs for women and girls, and even the women in the informal sector, women who have disabilities, those programs are contributing to the greater goal of bringing affordability down, because they bring more people into the digital society. Because if this digital society is a bus, the cost of driving that bus from Kampala to Entebbe, when it has 2 people on board. And then he mentioned cyber.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity is one of our key priorities, because at the end of the day, you don't want to expose people to something that can potentially be very harmful.
Yeah.
But that is not to scare them away, rather to empower them to navigate safely so that they still can productively use digital technologies. We're having a conversation in our strategy discussion about the different targets in NDP4. There's a target for access to internet, and then there's a different target for digital skilling.
Yeah.
And the discussion was that why are there 2 targets? Why there are 2 different targets? Because one translates basic use into productive use.
Yeah.
And that is what we are looking at here. That if it's the women in the market, or the farmers, or the women who are in the informal sector, the women in the salons, garages, carpentry, what kind of content are we putting on or creating to translate this device from being a luxury to practically a tool of trade or something that supports their livelihoods?
Yeah.
So you find that our Universal Service and Access Fund program is very pragmatic. It is diverse because it's not, there are a lot of conversations at the global level that people sometimes wonder, but how does this mirror what's happening here? No. Our program runs on partnerships, strategic partnerships, people who know what the needs of that particular demographic is.
Yeah.
Because when you look at, for example, the border men or the border industry, and you're like, how do we use digital technologies to enhance their efficiency, their business, their productivity, and also to make the industry safer, to improve the industry generally? Then you have to work with their own association, someone who understands the intricacies in there. Now, should we find that there is a smaller segment of women in the border industry, that again now attracts another level of amplification and engagement.
Yeah.
So that is where we have been as Uganda Communications Commission under the Universal Service and Access Fund program.
Yeah. I do have a very, I think it's a moral question from my side, because you mentioned the word productive usage.
Yes.
We currently have a challenge globally, and you can more over this question, you maybe come back to it after I engage with Sharifa, but we currently have a problem globally where we're talking about women, have found that they can be able to make a lot of money off of their phones by doing things that maybe might not be very productive. How do we deal with that as a country? Is there something that UCC can probably try and do to stop our young girls from using bad manners to try and make money for themselves? It's a genuine concern for me, and we see that happening a lot. But as you think about that, let me ask Sharifa maybe to shed some light on.
I think maybe to give you comfort.
Yeah.
That particular site that you're thinking of.
Me, I didn't say site. I just said things.
Service does not pay out to Africa.
Thank God, right?
Yet.
Yes.
So the onus is still with the regulator.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is a big challenge, and you see this happening a lot. And I'm hoping that the people who are watching this don't know what sites we're talking about, and that it stays that way. But it is becoming a big problem across the globe, where young girls are now, using the digital space to make money, yes, but do it in a manner that might not be good for them in the long run.
And it's exploitative, because you find that only people who are making money are the it's
The platforms, right?
The 5%.
Yeah.
So the 95% are basically being exploited.
That's a huge shame. So picking up on that, from the women-led businesses, the productive
The-
women-led businesses that you've been engaging with, what do you see as still being some of the hindrances or barriers that they have? Do we have any things that we still need to deal with? I've had the talk, I think, from Henry, and Rebecca has mentioned affordability being an issue. What other challenges do we have that you think need to be tackled to make sure that they can actually then take full advantage of?
Okay, so there's still issues like my colleagues have said with affordability. So access, because you find this woman who's deep in Kapeka, she has excellent coffee, but she can't afford the smartphone so she has to sell her coffee to someone else. She can't really
At a very low price
at a
that would
very
not
low
be
price. Yeah,
useful
she
for
doesn't
her,
know. She can't use the phone because there are more things than selling. You can actually use the phone to manage weather patterns, to how you're going to manage your farming. So she's locked out of that because of affordability. Then there's a skills issue. When we go to train, we find that some of these women, a good number of them, actually have these phones, but how many apps are they using on these phones? Do they know the full functionality of this phone beyond texting, receiving calls? You'll find that people don't even know that there's WhatsApp business. The WhatsApp that you're using to just talk, you can actually use it as a platform to display your goods. Many people are not aware of that.
I discovered recently you can actually integrate payments into WhatsApp.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
There's so much you can do. There's payments, there's all of these apps right now are introducing a business component. So that is something that people do. It's a skills issue. Then there's, of course, content. Most of these apps, if they've done so much integration, that most that they can translate to is Luganda. So if someone is limited and they only know Luganda, they only know their local language, they are limited in what they can use. Then finally, agency. Because we are in a patriarchal society, the agency to use this phone, can I confidently come and talk about my services? You see in our trainings, even just asking a woman, stand up and introduce yourself, she's shy. Now imagine asking her to go on Facebook Live and talk about your whatever you're selling to an audience of 10,000. It's overwhelming. So even that, can they do it safely without getting bad comments, without being abused? So there's limitations around
Without
that.
their husbands thinking they're using the phone for other things.
Yes. Then there's also that, owning the phones. In some of the programs, we give out devices. And we have to do this when the GISO is there, the DISO is there, the RDC, to give these women comfort and the rest of the audience that this device belongs to you. And that we are sort of monitoring you when you take this device. So when you go home, explain to your partner that this device is for you. So that you have some confidence. When they want to take it away from you, you say, I got it in front of the GISO, the DISO, the LC5. So if they find me without it, there will be an issue. This is government property.
It's actually that serious.
Yes.
I think it's important to include a lot of the programs have been designed for women or to address gender in the female perspective.
Right.
I think it's time that we also brought the men in those conversations, run either training or engagement programs that help men appreciate the value of empowering the women or how it adds value to the unit of a family without disrupting the stability of our very patriarchal society. So the issue is not to pitch women against the men, no. The issue is
which it can sometimes be seen as.
It can be interpreted as.
Right.
That, all these things you bring to society are disrupting the structure of society and the family. And in some instances, it's actually right. So maybe, even as we design these programs, even as we have these conversations, we should involve men to an extent, I think like they did for maternity health care, whereby they would tell the women, come with your husband.
Yeah.
So that the husband knows that this pregnant mother, it's not good for her to carry, or it's dangerous for their back. Now, in these trainings, to improve the social consciousness of how this tool can improve the quality of life at home. Because
Yeah.
truth be told, when you improve the quality of life of the woman in the home generally improves, even the children. As
By
in they are-
default, right?
Yes, there's
Yeah.
a spillover effect, which does not exactly mirror when it's the men because of the nurturing nature. Now,
Yeah.
in this scenario, we are leveraging the feminine aspects and the God-given nature of women, but enhancing their, I call it a superpower,
Right. It
by
is a superpower.
giving them a tool that first of all enables them to multitask, to track, to transact, to get information.
Yeah.
That's really empowering the entire community. So the men, whether in the informal, formal sector, rural, urban, even in corporate settings,
Yeah.
should have that consciousness of where are the women in this conversation?
Yeah.
How do we include more women in this program? How, so that consciousness is not at gunpoint, it becomes a sense and part of a natural process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, because it doesn't make sense to empower the woman if they're going to go back home and then still be subdued and becomes no work done in in every way that you think about it, right? Yeah,
So-
Henry, okay, Sherifa, you go first, and then
Just
Henry, you wanted to add something.
complementing that funny story, when we were training in Kamoli early this year, we had like 40 women who were brought by their partners on the bicycles. So we started the training, and the men didn't go anywhere. They just stood there on the side. So we said, just join.
You might as well, right?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
join. Let's understand together what we are doing so that you know what these women have. Because they were curious. They were standing. They were like, so you're going to keep them the whole day? What are you doing? Exactly. We want to know. So they stood there and we said, you know what? Join the class.
Yeah.
Let's skill everyone now. So what she's saying is very pertinent,
Yeah.
that we have to have inclusion of our partners as well.
Absolutely. Henry, are you men that insecure? You can't
No,
let
I'm
you-
not. I would just like to tell you a very good story, still linked with that. We do have programs in Mbale, Gulu, Kasese for Port here in Kampala. But I will tell you a very successful one in Kasese. We were training on food safety, digital literacy, mainly digital finance literacy. And we were with the Church of Uganda. And we said we're inviting 100 women.
Right.
But the meeting is not going to start if you don't come as a couple. Because we were talking about food loss and waste and how to feed nutritious in a nutritional, good diets, good financial management and so forth.
Yeah.
And the reason we are going to bring in men, because once you go home and start applying what you have learned, and then the man would say you are imposing. But the stories we have with food loss and waste, which applies, at least the lady said he comes back home, when he has eaten from another place, just puts a fork and then at times dozes off. That food is lost. It is wasted. So when we started discussing, and that is money lost. So when we brought in this narrative of training couples, to date, we are going back in June, the different religious institutions and cultural institutions have asked us to go and talk to couples rather than talking to the one gender. And the way she has brought it, and it is even an old saying, teach a woman, teach the nation.
Right.
Because once they are cuddling the children, they nurture them.
Yeah.
So if we are looking at the fourth industrialization, which is all about digitalization, we need to nurture the women who will nurture the youth, they will nurture the children. Let me give you a last story. Still, we were with UCC doing a town hall in Tororo so many years ago. this happened, and where you see grassroots and women organizations are very key in financial issues. So they had a challenge. They made their own circle, and they were using their SIM card to save their money.
Right.
But what happened to that SIM card? The SIM card, something went wrong with it. But it took them nearly 2 years to get it active again. But because of different initiatives and regulators listening to the voices from the grassroots, it is after that town hall that the next day the telecom had to respond, because the regulator had said, I want to follow up on this case. Why has it taken this long for women to access their 12 million shillings?
Yeah.
Now, you see that equity is very key. Bringing in the women in the digital space is going to improve the economics.
Right.
They are good savers.
Yeah.
And they're good financial managers.
Absolutely. And joining me today, I've had the director for the Government Citizen Interaction Center, Marcella Kareche, Sherifat Msimi, who has been doing some incredible work with women entrepreneurs, Mr. Henry Chimera, who is very strong on consumer protection, and Rebecca Mukite here at the Uganda Communications Commission, who is very big on what we're doing with communication services and infrastructure as well. As we wrap up the conversation, I want to ask each of my panelists to just tell us in maybe a minute or less, going forward, based on what we have talked about, where we're going, what is that one thing that you would want to see happening from your perspective in your circle and your sphere of influence that you think would get us closer to being able to have better gender equality in digital transformation? We'll start from Marcella, and then we'll come across the room towards me.
Thank you, Ben. First, I want to speak to this whole discussion around including the men. I don't think this happened because we were excluding men, generally. I think for societies to improve, and when development happens, people just look out for, who can we use now, where can we intervene, because development must continue. You notice that there are many homes led by women. Sometimes men will have so many homes, and then a woman will lead this one. Women are entrepreneur. So there's so many factors, and I don't think it's deliberate that men are being left out. I think it's just that development must continue, homes must grow, government must send their interventions here and there, and if they find women are easier, I think that's what will happen.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is that in as much as we are talking about inclusion and so on and so forth, I think we need to contextualize for our continent and our culture, and as much as possible, maybe start when we're young. So we introduce ICTs in schools so that it becomes part of society. And when women grow, when girls grow, it's easier. I think it's easier to teach when people are younger than when they're older. That's where I see government is trying to do that. UCC has done a wonderful job. ICT in schools, ICT as a subject. Yeah. And I believe that in a few years, we'll see a different society.
Yeah. Sherifa, for you?
Thank you, Ben. Digital transformation, like my colleague said, it affects us all, and there's no turning back. This is a wave that has come, and it's going to sweep us all, and it's important that we do not leave the other half behind. We don't leave women behind. I can give you an example. The first iteration of the health app on the iPhone did not have anything to do with periods, monitoring, nothing. That means on the design team, there was not a single woman. Because how could you forget something that happens every month?
Just that you mentioned that, I'm sure Henry and I were thinking, oh.
Yeah. So the health app came out and it didn't have that component, which was absurd. So imagine what we are leaving out if we do not include. So women should be part of this discussion because they're innovators, they're creators, like the lady I told you who's doing CFO as a service. Imagine such a brilliant innovation. Yeah. So
Right.
We have to include and be intentional about it, and it's good that the government of Uganda recognizes this and is being deliberate about building programs around this. So kudos to UCC for doing that.
I don't think you could have used a better example and analogy there. So, Henry, quick parting shots from you.
I would like to thank her because she has sent the message home
Yeah.
and grounded it. So you see, this is where localizing and simplifying issues, that's what makes us appreciate. Now, with transformation, we need to be systematic and inclusive. It should be safe. And I would like to use my last words at the Consumer Center and then get the women to speak up and out, and we see these aspects that are being raised
Right.
handled.
Thank you very much.
much.
And last but not least, UCC.
I don't know if it's a good thing to speak last, but as a commission right now, for us to come up with even more fit for purpose prescriptions, whether at policy or regulation or down at the business model level, we need data. We need to start encouraging, tapping gender disaggregated data. And that kind of data has to be intentional. So it has to be at all levels, at the sector, whether it's the operators or the government. We need to get the numbers, because without the numbers, it's not very easy for us to track and monitor the impact. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing, we need even more partnerships. There's a lot of work to do. And in the grand scheme of extending communication services to all people, there can never be enough money. So for us to have a nationwide impact, we need to get more partners on board and to work collaboratively and in a coordinated way, so that we complement each other's efforts, and that amplifies the impact. Last but not least, because we're in the era of new and emerging technologies, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, these technologies are surrounding us unconsciously. So we need to tap more of that data from women. So when women have smartphones, or when they are accessing ICTs in one way or another, we are tapping into that data set, so that we don't find ourselves in the scenario that Sharifa gave, whereby someone is designing a health app and is completely oblivious to a monthly health schedule of women. But when that data is tapped, and it's tapped across all genders, it means that when our innovators are using that data to design, to come up with products, with business products, those business products already have the gender markers on them that have been tapped off, the inclusion of women, girls, and also the female voices in these conversations. Thank you very
A big
much.
thank you to my entire panel. And on behalf of the Uganda Communications Commission, I want to say thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful discussion as we celebrate World Telecommunication and Information Society Day. Next time you log onto your phone this evening, whether to watch a TikTok video,